Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Marissa Indigo, Divine DNA Blueprint. How are you all doing out there? Wow, yes, this eclipse hangover is real. I'm definitely still in it, definitely feeling a lot better than I have been physically. Finally able to use my voice to share this information. I was really hoping to get some information out before the eclipse, and universe definitely had other plans. So in this episode, this podcast, we're going to be talking about the October 28th eclipse and just sharing an overview. I'm going to share some of my own personal experience. This was definitely a very intense and personalized eclipse for myself. This eclipse was at 5 degrees of Taurus, and that's actually my sun sign. That's actually my natal sun is 5 degrees Taurus. So you could say this was a very personal experience. So first, I want to welcome you. I hope you all are doing well with everything. I know it has been very intense, and there is no slowing down really with this. As we wrap up 2023, it's a lot. And I want to encourage self-care and slowing down and really taking time for yourself to restore yourself, right? Because so much is being asked of each one of us to be present. So I'd love to start with just going over the symbolic imagery of 5 degrees of Taurus. So the Sabian symbol for 5 degrees of Taurus is a widow at an open grave. And it has to do with cutting ties with the past, coming to terms with the temporary nature of all relationships, positions, and possessions, letting go of grief and sorrow. And we'll go even more deeply. I found a wonderful write-up on this thanks to James Burgess, and I will link that in the box below. So basically, we have a huge existential reevaluation after the October 14th eclipse that we had in Libra. And so that eclipse had a lot to do with really taking a good solid look. And that was kind of the start of the Hall of Mirrors codes that I received that we'll talk more about in this month of November, but where we're having a lot of kind of confrontational realizations of where shift has to happen. And for so many, myself included, and basically everyone I know, this last eclipse on the 28th was like the emotional fallout, kind of that emotional digging and clearing after what we were going through on the 14th. And it continues, right? So it goes. And this is really a death of attachments. There can be an element of the evolution of roles, of how we're showing up, how things are shifting in our lives. So some examples of this are children growing up, friendship imbalances, where we're starting to see these dynamics. And it's like, oh, this really is kind of imbalanced here. You know, a lot have been discussing the user energy or fair weather friends, where shit gets real or it's not as pretty and sparkly and they fall off. And that's okay. There's no judgment with that. Again, we always use this term because it's very neutral. It's a frequency differential. There can be some challenging aspects with this, however, with conscious or compassionate communication. Some may not be able to communicate at all. And so you may experience people just ghosting. And that's a hard one for me, but it is what it is, you know? So just taking everything as energy, honoring where everyone is at, and ultimately, regardless of the details of the situations, it's bringing clarity, right? It's just bringing a greater clarity and simplicity. There could also be some really confronting body care lifestyle adjustments necessary now to correct imbalances in our health, whether that's mental health, our physical health and well-being, you know, energetic, also our psychological health, right? So a lot of us have had to make, okay, yeah, I have to commit to these lifestyle choices now in order to sustain myself and heal my body from different imbalances. We're becoming even more acutely aware of the body now on an energetic level, and also the qualities of foods, and really making sure that things are much more balanced. More examples: parents getting sick, or getting older, or getting injured, legal documents and wills, really serious kind of stuff. right? Physical body breakdown under stress of so much energy and information being processed. And it can feel like so much is happening at once, and then in other ways, nothing is happening. Like, for instance, a lot going on that you're observing, and maybe the things that you're working towards, they're still taking time to germinate. So sometimes it can feel like a foot on the gas pedal with certain things and a foot on the brake with other things. And it's all just coming through us. It's not our own feet on these pedals. We're just going along for the ride as best we can, right? So I want to share my personal experience because it may be of some assistance to you, because it's been a really intense last couple of weeks. And first, I just want to share some of the monthly offerings that I have coming up. I've got a really wonderful webinar coming up on the 15th of November, and it's ancestral clearing and quantum DNA activation with epigenetics. And it's all about clearing our DNA of ancestral trauma and really transforming these traumatic elements, if you will, or the aspects of the unwanted. So there's some shadow work involved in this, what we would formerly call shadow work. Now we call it integration, really, and unifying and self-love, coming into our power. It's going to be a really powerful 2-part workshop. So I'm actually including this mastery course that's on my mystery school. So if you register for this, you have all the course materials to go through the material, and then we're actually going to meet up live to go over it. That's the best way for everyone to really dive deeply into this material and apply, because we're going into so many different themes here. And so it's really about diving deeply into ourselves, our immediate family, generations past, seeing how it's all here and now. And also just looking at what's ready to be transcended and alchemized and become part of your toolkit. And connecting with our ancestors and surrendering the schisms within our minds and hearts and energy fields really creates a potent ripple effect in our life, where you can feel much more powerful and more in love, more capable and connected than ever. And so this is really a powerful light work that is an individual contribution to collective world peace, really, and heaven on earth frequencies, because each of us has the battle program. Each of us has these schisms of things that are carried in our DNA, these experiences and stories and just so much. And so this is a very comprehensive course. And I look forward to seeing you on the 15th. This is going to be on New Earth 1, and it's only $33, which is a huge, fabulous deal, because the course itself on my school is like $222. So the link will be in the description box below. I'm also offering 50% off the mystery school courses for the entire rest of the year, because there's so much information that's channeled and researched. So I kind of do a combination of scholastic study with what I receive in the oracle state of a quantum entanglement kind of state of receiving information. And it's all based on what I'm experiencing or have experienced. So I'm sharing, solutions, tools, methods, what was really real, so that you have a very tangible approach. It's very grounded and realistic and simple for a lot of more complex ideas and experiences, like the physical ascension process, working with the sun and the solar energy, or things like the ancestral clearing, like we talked about. I've got all kinds of stuff on this school. It's pretty amazing body of work, I will say. I'm very grateful for that. So check it out. If you are in the Seattle area this weekend, there is the BEPC Wellness and Metaphysical Convention. I will be there with a booth, table 13, and this is all about bringing everybody peace and consciousness. There's a really amazing variety of vendors. I'll be there with solfeggio, crystalline tuning forks, and working with archetypes and oracle sessions. It's big. It's like 130 vendors or something like that. It's going to be a really fun convention. So if you're local to the area, stop on by. All right, so now let's get into this eclipse. So I'll start at the beginning, which was basically a few weeks ago, the week that I put out that Andromedan activation of that dream that I had. As I was designing the visuals for that podcast, I was seeing a lot of diamonds and diamonds on the planet and diamond light codes. I've been working with these for several years now. I have a lot of content all about the diamantine, all of that. And when I see those now, I'm like, oh shit, because light exposes distortion. It's a combination of the most beautiful, incredible, pure frequencies, right? And also what that means. Like what it means. Like, yes, it's extremely beautiful and feels amazing. And that level of purity and light and crystalline frequencies that creates aftershocks, ripple effects on the planet. So what was happening right around that time? The latest war, right? Really getting old at this point. And that's part of that diamond light frequency is it is going to be shining a laser beam on all of these systems and programs and societal issues, right? Where it is just not working and you can really start to see through it now, right? So it's really supporting humanity to go through the closet and start to really look at, really, is this who we are? Is this what we want to define us and our story as a species, right? I will share some of those images I was playing around with AI, making these images here so you can see these beautiful diamond light codes. So yes, we're being completely inundated with diamond light codes and we see what that does on different levels of consciousness. So unconsciousness, it riles up what needs to be brought to the surface. The deepest, darkest aspects of the human psyche, fully represented by war and havoc and chaos and destruction, right? And then on the upper levels of that, we see incredible upgrades, incredible innovation, beautiful Christed light and love and creation, more calls for peace, right? So you see how it kind of has this dualistic component that's all about digging and hashing up and bringing to the surface what is toxic, what is not aligned with the vision that humanity holds. And it's definitely been amazing to continue to see many different levels of consciousness where they are with this. Obviously the media stirring the pot, and there's a lot about this that I think we're definitely over, and really a lot of people, thank goodness, are starting to see through, like, we want peace on this planet. We're kind of over this like really weird necessity to try to own things and like the ways that we go around obtaining things, I mean, come on, right? There are much better ways to do things. So then you see in people who have been working more on their consciousness, mindfully, consciously doing their best, you see a lot of beautiful information coming forth and creativity, inspiration, and, creation, right? The opposite of destruction. So divine creation. Starting to see those diamond light codes. And then my own physical ascension body upgrade started going through the roof. And it started with nonstop sneezing. I could feel my blood pressure was high, teeth aches, neck issues, totally disoriented, equilibrium off, had to walk very slowly, move very slowly. For almost a week, all I could do was really just lie down. And my head felt expanded, like it was like 3 feet wide. And oh my God, it was a lot to try to function, and I just did the bare minimum. Meanwhile, while all of this is going on physically, there's a lot going on with all the generations. I live in a multi-generational home. So if you also live in a multi-generational home, or you're close with your family that are of many different generations, you see how these frequencies affect everybody where they are in their conscious journey, right? What's the programming that they are working through, right? So going through my own stuff, having my left lymph node so swollen that it hurt to swallow, it hurt to talk, and that's why I couldn't get any content out, and I couldn't even write. I really wanted to just write a little community post, share what the physical crap was that I was dealing with, and I couldn't. I was like, nope. I was like a vegetable. I just have to lay there and just breathe and just take it all in and do my best to be present for my family and just the immediate situations going on. So now all that stuff's going on with the body, right? And then we have this 5 degrees of Taurus, and I'm going to share more about that. All right. 5 degrees. It's 4 and 5 degrees of Taurus, the Sabian symbol, a widow at an open grave. As much as we must exhale at the end of every breath, it is inevitable that we must lose our wealth and influence. The grasping that occurs as we cope with materiality is a major obstacle to soul evolution. And if we are to optimize our progression, we must learn to let go of everything in the very moment of its completion. For a true seeker, grief is a debilitating emotion that must not be overindulged. So too is nostalgia. The gate to freedom is in the ability to turn feelings around. Everything dies. We need to have the ability to release our attachments and move our focus of attention away from what has passed. We are severely tested in life, often to the limits of our capability to cope. And if we are to maintain the integrity of self, we must be able to live with grief and resist the descent into ineptitude born of distress. One of the most debilitating features of the grief that follows the departure of a loved one is the sense that we are powerless. This is, of course, essentially false, because it ignores the creative influence we have, in which we are responsible for our own circumstances, all of them. Learning how to turn around these feelings of disempowerment is the gate to freedom and happiness. The widow at the grave indicates our natural inclination to relate with certain special others with an open, vulnerable heart. Our needs for warmth, companionship, and comfort are usually tied up with one or two particular people. It is quite normal and not entirely unhealthy, at least to a certain extent, to invest our identity in these people. Evolutionary journey of the soul. Sometimes it takes great personal aplomb to be able to regroup and refocus. We are tested in this. Disappointments, loss, and even grief can be transcended by a correct attitude of mind, so that by the true seeker, even these most troubling events are seen as grist for the mill. The ever-spiraling, eternal evolutionary journey of the soul requires such examinations for its best progress. We simply cannot progress towards our fullest potential without enduring and learning how to cope with these seemingly impossible emotional trials. Death is as much a beginning as an ending. We are profoundly challenged to come to terms with loss, to reorientate our intimate life circumstances, and to claim back whatever we had invested in those who leave us. Everything real is within us. What we cannot fully embody within ourselves is not truly ours. So the loss of anything external does not in fact rob us of anything essentially real within us. This wisdom applies generally to every aspect of our lives. When we permit reality to become static, we are lost. Each moment is already gone in the instant of its arrival. Life is death. The advanced being knows how to release completely and immediately all experiences. They are outworn the moment we recognize them. And a little bit more commentary from Rochelle Beatty. A widow standing speaks of strength through life's changes. Having a heightened awareness of both the physical and spiritual, an open grave, a gateway to another realm, a soul's liberation. This symbol reminds us that all things will eventually transform in time. We have no choice but to let go of things that have completed their cycle. We must remember that where there are endings, there are always new beginnings and opportunities. So this is like totally my entire experience, this eclipse. It's very Scorpio, right? So yeah, this is a 5-degree Taurus for this eclipse, or sorry, the moon was at 5 degrees of Taurus, but what's opposite Taurus is Scorpio, and the sun is in Scorpio right now. It's important to mention also that this is the 7th and final eclipse in this series of the Scorpio-Taurus axis. So we've actually had 7 eclipses with these thematics going on in variable graduations and energetics at play. And so now we will not see this again for another decade. So it's really a lot of existential transformation and really deep examination. And for me, I use the Scorpio energy as a very powerful shamanic just evisceration of programming. And so some of the things witnessed were watching my daughter grow up, right? And individuate into her own self. And there are phases when our children become teenagers where they become a lot more independent. And it's time to really mourn the loss of the shift of the relationship from when they were little and they needed us more, right? Or wanted us more. All of these ego deaths, right? So that was really fabulous and intense. Of course, a process of a death, right? So for me, the death has been symbolic of a lot of attachments and cords. Also, the attachment to feeling respected or wanting to have respectful communication, realizing that some people just aren't capable of that. And so I think the key of this is that all of these transformative and transitional experiences, even if it's a sense of loss, so to speak, that none of them rob us, none of them take from us. This is the new us, right? Where we are realizing so much more about ourselves and who we are with this eclipse season, what's important, what are our values, right? That our light quotient is increasing increasing so much that we can go through really intense experiences, and yet it doesn't disempower us. It doesn't take from us. It doesn't bring us to our knees the same way. So there's a lot of strength here. Also, a lot of maturity now in all of the wisdom gained from this experience and perspective, right? A lot of courage, a lot of boldly continuing regardless of the intensity. So I'll share. So I was going through all of this sickness, and what really brought it on was deprogramming fear of death of my mom. So a week before this eclipse, she broke her knee, and her doctors didn't seem to be the brightest because they wanted to schedule her surgery the day before the eclipse. Now, of course, I don't expect doctors to know about astrology, right? But she had a cold, and it's like, isn't that like common sense? You don't put someone under anesthesia when they're sick. And I mean, it's just like, really? So you see a lot of systems right now, there's just no logical thinking. It's just like schedule it, book the insurance. I mean, it's wild. So I had to have a conscious conversation with her, talk with her about her chart and the eclipse and all of this, and just say, if you want to do this surgery, it is kind of a risk, and you might want to think about having your paperwork in order, and so it's a very real discussion about death and mortality and your will, like what is your will? And this is very Scorpio, right? And I've had that program off and on throughout my life, fear of losing our mother. I think that's a pretty normal one for people. For me, it's particularly magnified because of the placement of where I have Pluto opposite my sun in the 4th house, which is family and mother energies. So I've always had this like deep, like, I don't want to lose my mom. And I remember it started with thanks to satanic Disney and the Bambi movie, right? Where Bambi loses his mom. I remember being like 5 years old and being gripped with terror at that concept. That was a new concept to my psychology at that time. And I remember being so deeply horrified. And so where I am now, I look back on that, and I literally traveled to that moment. I remember watching that VHS tape and just being like, my entire being just being shook, yeah, Disney loves murdering mothers, so fuck Disney. Anyway, deep stuff that we're dealing with, right? And so bringing all of that into, okay, processing that fear, allowing the inner child to have that validated moment of that fear, and also honoring my mom's will and presenting the information to her in a way that is very clear and not putting any of my own energy into it, because it's not what I want. What's aligned for her? She has to make the executive decision, right? With her own free will, right? So that happened. And then once she decided to wait and not have the surgery, I was so relieved, so relieved. And then that's when I got just so physically debilitated, because I think a lot of that energy, when you are looking at and facing the possibility of mortality and death. And if you have experiences with death, I have a lot of experience with death. I lost my dad when I was a couple months pregnant with my daughter. And we had this fantastic experience where the last time I saw him, he actually told me, hey, if anything ever happens to me, like, this is how all the paperwork is set up, all this stuff. And I said, okay, well, while we're on this subject, like, what are your wishes? And he let me know he wanted to be cremated, all this stuff. So me having 5 degrees Taurus of my sun, death, and the existential process of looking at this through the multidimensional perspective, through the lens, the shamanic, perspective, it's been part of my life since I was young. So I'm not afraid of death. I don't give it any power. I consider it actually an ally, because the concept of death helps us to live even more fully, right? That being said, though, you still have to process the potential that there is inevitability for all of us, that we will face loss in the human experience, right? So that happened. I had to work through that deprogramming, loss of the mom, loss of the mother. So then the head cold comes on and I couldn't talk. Then I had a really interesting experience of heart pain, and the visions that I was getting was just this ripping out of the programs of this fear that I had carried since a child. Like, I shared that experience watching Bambi, right? And I could just see these threads of this fear, this programs, the attachments, right? Just getting ripped out of the pericardium muscles in my heart. And I had the day of the eclipse, so the sun was opposite my sun. It's a very serious aspect to experience. It's potentially lethal. And I knew that too. I was like, well, I could die. Someone close to me could die. Fuck it. Whatever. I'm going to chill. I'm going to be very relaxed. I'm just going to, be present and breathe and just listen deeply. So this entire experience was very deep listening for me, right? Not exerting any force or anything, just being. And it felt like my heart was weak, and I just had to rest and breathe. And while I was having these experiences of some pangs of heart pain, I was seeing these visuals of, oh wow, this is the programming leaving, this is the grief leaving the body. And I'm guided to share this more in depth because it's important for everyone to understand as best as possible that deprogramming is part of the physical experience. This is part of the physical ascension experience where we have stored trauma in the body. When it leaves, we have physical sensations and they can be very strong, right? They can bring you to the portal of death where you think, okay, I might die from this. And I talk about this in the Solar Rishi course where I was having these solar activations and I was like, okay, I don't know if my body can handle this. Like I might die from this, whatever. It is what it is, And then the Solar Rishi came. It was my first encounter with them. And they said, actually, you've done this before. You guys are made for this. Just chill. And I remember Sandra Walter's work saying, you may have these moments where you feel like you're just going to dissolve. You may feel like you're going to just explode and dissolve into nothing. And it kicks on a nervous system response, some panic, some anxiety. In Tai Chi Gong with Master Lama Rasaji, in the Tibetan tradition, they call that the death urge. There are these unconscious chemical responses that kick on. So it's a huge theme, and I think it's really important to talk about it and to have conscious discussion around this so that people feel empowered when they're having these physical experiences, to not give power to the experience or fear. Just be present with it. Just breathe. Find a silent, relaxed place and just let everyone know, hey, I'm not feeling very well. I'm going to rest. And if you feel like you need help, of course, reach out, right? But I just wanted to share. So all of this is going on, the psychological processing. I can't actually physically really talk. Very weak feeling in my heart, watching all of that, just being aware of all of that. And in case I'm guided to do something, I had to cancel a ton of stuff. There were summits I was supposed to be a part of, sessions, all of these things. It's like, no. And then so many other people are also freaking out in my sphere, friends and clients with their intensive emotional clearing and deprogramming. And I would just have to tell them I have to take a few days of silence here. It's very important. And so this is just an immense amount of energy and information that is happening. Not only that, but we're also feeling the collective grief with the horrors of war and what that does to people, right? What that does to families and children and innocent people. And for what? For money, right? So there's a lot of things that's like, wow, this is really disgusting to observe, right? So if you're having heart pain, see, maybe it's some of that collective grief. One of my cats right now has to wear a cone because she is having an allergic reaction. She's having some dermatitis and she won't stop scratching, of course, and I've been putting like hydrocortisone cream. Well, I was sick, wasn't paying attention to her for a few days and looked at her and they were so bad. She had sores. I was like, oh my God, we need to get her a cone. So this has been probably one of the most scorpionic experiences I've ever had, right? We have this eclipse, all of this Scorpio energy, hardcore Scorpio energy, death and decay, oozing wounds, rotting pumpkins, injured family members, everyone's sick, psychological ego death, potential of physical death and loss. I mean, it was like, wow, one of the most intense portals ever. And yet I felt connected and strong and present, just really surrendering and just deep listening. And so, yes, there's definitely a huge amount of eclipse hangover with all of this. And ultimately, what these experiences do is they're liberating us onto the other side, right? You get through these intense squeezes, these intense portals, just being present, breathing, using your tools, relaxing. And the interesting thing to observe is that even though the intensity doesn't really let up with how much information and energy we're exposed to and receiving on many levels, what we start to observe is, I can handle a lot more. Our light quotients are increasing. Before, right, one thing used to stress us out back in the day, right? Oh, this didn't go the way I wanted, like something like that, something that might be kind of trivial, really, in retrospect, right? With everything we've seen, everything we've been through. And now you're like, okay, well, this has been my whole reality, but I made it. I'm alive, and I'm fine. And I have a lot more wisdom and we have a lot more energy freed up. So this is a reclamation. There's a reclamation of our bodies, of our psyches, our energy, our values, our focus. There's more of that condensation, that concentration, or in alchemy, they call it the distillation of the spirit, right? Where we have even more resolve and strength and courage and empowerment to continue. Nothing can really get us down. And that's Pluto in Capricorn right now, the mountain goat. Did you know mountain goat, their feet are like pinchers, like pliers to hang on to the rocks as they ascend higher and higher. And what is Capricorn? The mystical sea goat. So it goes to the depths of the ocean, the collective unconscious, our own individual unconscious and beyond, dealing with the subconscious programming coming up, right? The depths, all the way up, ascending to the top of the mountain to feel closer to God too. So it's such a powerful time, such an empowering time. And just to wrap up here, you know, self-care is key. Solfeggio tones. There's a fabulous channel. It's one of my favorite channels on YouTube. It's called Meditative Mind. And they are so talented and the frequencies that they bring forth. They also have mantra chants if you like that kind of thing. The Tai Chi Gong practice, you can sign up for free. The link is in the description box. Just know that these are times of immense psychological and soul level tests and initiations. And at the end of the day, it's showing you your fortitude. It's showing all of us our ability to see through deception and to choose creation over destruction, to choose love over fear. There is this component with the planet Pluto right now, which is actively on a seek and destroy or search and destroy mission of all of our Achilles heels. All of what we used to have as weaknesses that would take us out, they're all being removed. So we're starting to see the unconditionality of our love, of our empowerment, of our courage, of our willingness to continue to be here and to serve, right? Whatever that means, to be leaders in love and light in our communities, speaking truth in our families, being kind and gentle, and really seeing, you know, where people are. It's their process, right? That their truth is true for them. But these intense scenarios arise. They continue to arise, and it's all for our greater clarity, our greater self-knowing, right? Wisdom, and ultimately to assist us to come in even more trust, because we start to see like, wow, look at what I can handle and manage. And so the opposite of the unpleasant experiences are the pleasant ones, right? What we're building. So the video game levels continue to intensify, but this is all to dislodge us from any shackles in the mind. So you start to see how much you can handle and not break. And remember to be like bamboo, right? We bend so we don't break. Light quotients are increasing beyond what we ever thought possible for ourselves. The fact that we can hold love and kindness pretty much through anything. Right? So you definitely want to congratulate yourself. We made it through this portal. You want to continue to focus on self-love and bathe in the love of Source Creator every day. Feel that love, connect to that love every day, and emanate that. It's really important that we take love baths, right? Because the media and all of this, they're going to continue to amplify the absolute barrage of just negative, dark, disgusting information. And so we have to shield ourselves from that. Psychic community, very important. Keep your frequency up. And of course, we feel everything. Allow yourself to feel. It's very important to become a feeler in these times. That's actually all part of our psychic gifts, the spidey senses. So you want to feel all of the feelings. We don't judge them, and then let them flow through and move on, right? On to the next, until the charge is deactivated, and then you see through it. So be gentle with yourself and with others as we carry on into 2024 and 2025. I mean, we have to say that despite all of this, everything, we have not seen anything yet. So it's really about our strength and our sustainability and our health, right? Your health is your wealth on all levels. So take good care. And I look forward to hearing about your experience with this, and hopefully see you for the webinar on the 15th. And stay tuned for the November report. We'll have that out in a couple of days. We're going to be talking about the Hall of Mirrors. A lot of these wonderful portals coming to continue to work through and integrate so much energy and information that we have been witnessing, experiencing firsthand, right? Experiencing through others, and so on. Sending you all so much love and empowerment for these times. We wouldn't be here if we weren't supposed to be here. So just remember that we have everything within us for these times. And it's really exciting to self-source and to mine your own gems inside. So enjoy the excavation of Scorpio and the strength and the empowerment, seeing how much you actually have already you've created to work with. Sending you all so much love, and see you soon.